Welcome, all you faithful viewers, to yet another exquisite display of my horror Blu-ray collection. You're in for quite a treat. Why am I talking like this? Because I'm a huge Rod Serling fan, even though my Rod Serling often drifts into William Shatner territory. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk that way this whole video. Welcome to yet another episode of Round the Clock Frights. Just so you know, guys, this is my 5th horror Blu-ray update video. If you enjoy this, please make sure to watch all the others. I did create a playlist for you guys. You should find that in the comment section down below. And today, I'm going to be showing off a number of horror Blu-rays that I picked up recently, mostly at used record stores. Some of these I actually did get at like Barnes & Noble, some of those more classy stores. I did get a couple at Target, which is where I currently work, but I am really, really excited to show these off today. I've got some really good titles for you guys, and if you like this, please subscribe to our channel for more horrific content. We got some really awesome videos planned. We got some awesome things in the works. So, guys, my horror collection is growing pretty much every month. I've got everything from John Carpenter to Lucio Fulci. Hell, I even have some Dario Argento titles, which I'm extremely proud of. But let's go ahead and get started, guys, starting with the Criterion release of The Devil's Backbone. This is one of Guillermo del Toro's earlier features, and del Toro does this thing where his quote-unquote horror movies are not necessarily horror. This is actually about the Spanish Civil War. It takes place in this rundown old orphanage, and honestly, it is a haunting film, but it's much more of a human drama. Like, you follow like these kids as they try to survive the Spanish Civil War. These kids who are just surrounded by violence. And there's a memorable ghost like at the center. The ghost featured here in the cover. It's this little boy with a little crack on his head, and blood is constantly streaming out of like his head. Like, it's a very haunting display. One of the most memorable ghosts in cinema history. Del Toro has actually done this throughout his entire career with films like Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth was an excellent movie, but what was so interesting about it was that, yes, it did have some fantasy elements, but it was also a scary human drama. Like, the human villain in that movie was much, much more terrifying than anything in the fantasy world, and the same goes here. The humans in this movie are pretty damn despicable, and you honestly end up hating them more than the scary monsters. But it's an excellent movie, very, very underrated, but I'm very glad that the Criterion Collection decided to put it out for release, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Alright, you want to see a batshit insane Brad Dourif performance? Check out The Exorcist 3. The Exorcist 3 is often remembered as the subpar, third entry in the Exorcist series, but here's the thing. This movie has gotten a lot more attention over the years. It features one of the most infamous jump scares in horror history. You know which one I'm talking about. And that sequence alone is one of the many reasons why I am scared shitless of hospitals and garden shears. But Brad Dourif is one of my favorite horror actors of all time, and he gives a truly unnerving performance in this movie. Like, every time that he is on screen, you're just on the edge of your seat. Like, he does this thing where he's like constantly looking into the camera, with those bulging psychotic eyes of his, and he is just talking, angrily through his teeth and just screaming like this intense dialogue at you, and it is just one of the scariest performances in cinema history. The Exorcist 3 is a little talky. It is a very dialogue-heavy movie. It was written by William Peter Blatty, the author of the original Exorcist novel, and I don't think this was his directorial debut. I might be wrong about that. But it's an incredibly atmospheric movie, and I would say it was a worthy sequel to the original Exorcist. Definitely recommend checking it out. And these next two titles, I pretty much have a soft spot for the Final Destination movies. I do have all 5 entries in the Final Destination collection. This one I found at a used record store for $14, and I'd say that's a pretty good deal. And I actually rewatched the first Final Destination recently, and what was so captivating about it was heavily dramatic. It was much more dramatic than I remembered. I mean, you look at the lineup here. You have Devon Sawa, who was in a bunch of really crappy movies in the 90s. Like, remember Wild America? Wild America was like watching just cinematic puke for an hour and a half. I can't stand Wild America. But the first Final Destination movie is pretty mesmerizing, and the filmmakers did take the concept very seriously. And, like the Saw series, people think of Final Destination and they think of the memorable kills. Like, there are some really memorable kills in these movies. You might be asking what some of my favorite kills are. I would say some of my favorite kills are actually like in the first movie, to be honest. The scene where that bully is in the bathroom, or not even the bully, I'm sorry. That scene where Devon Sawa's friend is in the bathroom and he ends up getting strangled by the wire, that was just unnerving. And I've actually started taking a lot more baths recently. I mean, mostly to stay handsome and flawless. Just kidding. But the reason is because I've kind of become scared of showers, and this movie kind of had a hand in that. This and Psycho. Another favorite death of mine is in the third movie. I'm not necessarily afraid of roller coasters. I've been on a lot of, high-octane roller coaster rides in my time, but the roller coaster sequence in the third movie is incredibly memorable and brutal, and if there's anyone out there who has a fear of roller coasters, you might want to stay away from the third movie, because the third movie does feature an exceedingly disturbing sequence involving a roller coaster. I would say the fifth film is also one of the better sequels in the franchise. The fifth film actually did some interesting things with the mythology, and there's a big twist at the end of the fifth film. It turns out that the fifth film is actually a prequel to the first Final Destination movie. So that was pretty unexpected, and I really enjoyed how it tied back to the original film. Oh, also, guys, there is an alternate ending to the first film available on YouTube, and I have to say that it's pretty crappy. It doesn't leave as much of an impact as the theatrical ending does. So check that out if you want, but it makes the first film end on a whimper, not a bang. All right, guys, ready for some good old-fashioned 80s fun? I got it for you right here. The Gate. What is The Gate? Pray it's not too late. The Gate is an immensely enjoyable 80s feature. It's one of those films that features a bunch of kids going up against these supernatural forces. In this case, a portal to hell opens up in this little boy's backyard. He enlists his best friend, who is kind of a nerd. I mean, he's a cool nerd, though. He really likes rock and roll. I mean, I was a nerd when I was that age, but I liked rock and roll too, so maybe I could have taken on the forces of Satan. Who knows? Anyway, this movie is hugely enjoyable, like I said. And, what I really like about this movie is that the kids actually act like kids. They're constantly swearing, they're, talking about, what girls they have crushes on. And, this movie, I miss movies like this. Movies like The Gate, movies like Monster Squad, where kids are just allowed to act like kids. And also, some of the effects in this movie, I saw this for the first time as an adult, but if I had seen some of these effects as a little boy, particularly the scene in which an eyeball appears in that guy's hand, I probably would have been traumatized for life. But again, guys, The Gate is one of the more underrated horror films from the 80s. I would definitely recommend checking this out as well. The Blu-ray release is fantastic. I don't have many releases from Vestron Video, but I definitely would like to pick some more up. I usually stick to Arrow Blu-ray releases or the Criterion Collection, especially Scream Factory. But Vestron, I've checked out their catalog, and they do seem to have some worthwhile titles. So I'll probably end up picking some more of those out. Okay, another unpopular opinion on my part. I thought Gretel Hansel was actually one of the better horror films to come out of 2020. I thought it was a beautiful, frightening, intelligent nightmare. And, okay, I just have to say this. A lot of people criticize this movie for being incredibly slow-paced, but here's the thing. It has some gorgeous autumn cinematography. You just look at this movie and you think of autumn. Oh my god, the shots of the forest in this movie, they are just so atmospheric, and, you get those classic fairy tale vibes, This is a faithful Grimm adaptation. The Grimm fairy tales were often very dark and very disturbing, and this movie is, very faithful to those old school Grimm fairy tales. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I understand that. I think it has a 15% audience approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But I don't know. I honestly don't mind slow-paced horror movies, as long as they contain, as long as they contain atmosphere and likable characters. And here's something this movie does that I thought was interesting. So Gretel is actually the main character. It's her journey. She's the one who has she's the one who has the complete character arc, and it's mostly about her journey into adulthood. Like even early on, there's a scene where her and her brother are sitting in a room with this creepy pervert, and he's kind of making moves on her, and she basically has to get them out of the room. She is the one who has to take the initiative, and the rest of the movie is pretty much her, learning to become a much stronger woman. She's constantly protecting her brother from this evil witch. And by the way, the evil witch, played by Alice Krige, I think that's how you say her name. The evil witch, one of the greatest witches in cinema history. And I don't say that lightly. Alice Krige did a phenomenal job as the witch in this movie. We are on to the last pile here, guys, and this is one of my favorite John Carpenter films of all time, In the Mouth of Madness. I recently released a video called horror movies that actually scared me. In the Mouth of Madness was on there. This movie gave me some legitimate creeps, and here's why. So the idea of these, evil forces coming into our realm from another dimension, I just find that very eerie and creepy. And there's just, the buildup in this movie is fantastic. It's just so unnerving. We follow Sam Neill's character as he travels to this town that has been the setting, for all of these classic horror novels. He's investigating, the disappearance of an author named Sutter Kane. And what he discovers is that this town is like an H.P. Lovecraft nightmare. And, oh my god, I just have to say, that scene where Sam Neill is in his cell at the asylum, and he sees like this hand just pressing, on his window. That scene, I can't remember the last time a scene in a horror movie affected me so heavily. That scene just shook me to my core. I was trembling in my seat. I wanted to curl up on the floor. I wanted to poop my pants. And The Mouth of Madness really did get to me, guys. It is one of John Carpenter's more underrated flicks. Please, please, please check out In the Mouth of Madness. This is a Scream Factory release. They always do a fantastic job. A fantastic, fantastic job. I like to annoy my wife with this song. Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get them peepers? Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get them eyes? Jeepers Creepers is kind of a average horror movie, but I really enjoyed the first half. Man, this is another one of those cases where the buildup was just so good that, the second half had some really high standards to live up to. And one thing that I do like about this movie is that the main characters, Justin Long and Gina Phillips, aren't lovers. They're actually brother and sister. So, you don't get any of that annoying, romantic dialogue that you often find in slasher movies. Jeepers Creepers is a movie directed by a man who was convicted of some stuff. He isn't necessarily the best human being, but you can like the art, but dislike the artist. And I thought he made a pretty worthwhile horror movie. Like I said, the first half of this movie is incredibly intense. That scene where they're underground and they find all these bodies, stitched together. It's just a horrific, display of human biology. That scene is one of the most visually arresting scenes I've probably ever witnessed in a horror movie. And I know that there were 2 sequels to this. I take that back. I have seen Jeepers Creepers 2, and here's my reaction to Jeepers Creepers 2. Jeepers Creepers 2 can suck a fat dick because, wow, it was really, really bad. But Jeepers Creepers, it was also produced by Francis Ford Coppola, if you can believe it, the man behind The Godfather. And, like I said, it does have some worthwhile stuff in it. You do sympathize with the 2 lead characters, and Justin Long. Man, whenever Justin Long is in a horror movie, he just has the most horrific shit happen to him. Remember in Dragged to Hell when his girlfriend gets dragged to hell at the very end? Spoiler, I guess. It's a movie that's over 10 years old, but Justin Long can never catch a break in these horror movies. That poor man. At least someone isn't throwing a wrench at his head. Okay, Land of the Dead. I really don't have much to say about this one. It's the main reason why I have Land of the Dead is because I'm a completionist, and George A. Romero did a respectable job, with this film. He hadn't directed, a zombie film in a while, so this was his quote unquote return to form, and it's got some interesting ideas. I like the idea that there was a city and it's pretty much divided into different, class sanctions. Like the wealthy are living, near the top, and they're acting as if the apocalypse isn't even happening. And yeah, if you've lived through 2020, you would know that that sadly isn't very unrealistic. But anyway, Safe Space, Land of the Dead. Like I said, fine entry in George Romero's Dead series. Not one of the better ones, but definitely better than Survival of the Dead. Survival of the Dead was poo-poo. Okay, Maggie. Oh my god. Maggie is so heartbreaking. Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't known for his dramatic performances, but he is emotionally devastating in this movie. He plays a father whose young daughter has been infected by the zombie virus, and he is doing everything in his power to make sure that his daughter, stays alive. He's not ready to let her go. So it's a metaphor, for fatherhood and not being able to let your kids go. Or, if one of your kids becomes terminally ill, how difficult would that be? And Arnold Schwarzenegger, you cast him in a role like this and you're not really expecting much, but he really does deliver. I wouldn't say that it was, Oscar worthy or anything, but again, for an actor who isn't known for drama, I thought he was surprisingly compelling in this movie. And Abigail Breslin, too. Abigail Breslin is another one of those actresses who, honestly, just is capable of delivering such a heart-wrenching performance. And it's definitely not a fun watch, that's for sure. It is pretty depressing, and the ending, you could probably see it coming, but it's fitting for a story like this. So check out Maggie, guys. It was released in 2015, and not many people talk about it anymore. But if you're a Schwarzenegger fan, or if you're a fan of the zombie genre in general, definitely give it a watch. Just have some tissues on standby. Okay, the original Maniac. Wow, Tom Savini really went all out with the gore effects in this movie. Holy crap. Like, Maniac is a sleazy movie. It is graphically violent. Like, this film pulls no punches. It's about this deadbeat who essentially kills women and scalps them. And then he takes their scalps and places them on top of these mannequins. He's maniacal. You can just tell by, looking at this poster that Maniac isn't necessarily a feel-good movie. But you know what? The reason that I respect this movie is because, like I said, it doesn't pull any punches, and it does feel pretty damn realistic. And the lead actor, Joe Spinell, does give a mesmerizing performance. Like, he is incredibly convincing as this disturbed individual, and Tom Savini's effects are just magnificent. It also features one of the greatest head explosions in cinema history. If you've seen the scene, you know what I'm talking about. Tom Savini put himself in that scene. Although it's not as memorable as his turn in From Dusk Till Dawn, where he has that, pistol attached to his crotch. I'm being real here. From Dusk Till Dawn, the movie kicks ass. Okay, so I've already reviewed this film. This is a Japanese anime film called Perfect Blue, directed by Satoshi Kon, or Satoshi Kon, and it's a twisted psychological thriller. It basically explores the idea of fame and, some of the downsides of fame. It's about this girl, who wants to be an actress. She's a pop idol, and she wants to get into acting, and she's willing to go to these incredible lengths to become an actress. And it turns out she also has this creepy stalker who has been following her throughout the film. And, oh my god, if there's any film that effectively portrays the price of fame, it's this movie. This movie has a lot in common with a 2010 film called Black Swan. And from what I understand, Darren Aronofsky is a huge fan of this film. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was, if he was heavily influenced, by this when he was making Black Swan. Perfect Blue, like I said, I reviewed it on this channel already, but I was very happy to find this on sale at Best Buy. If you're an anime fan, or if you're a fan of psychological thrillers in general, I would definitely give it a chance. And, if you're one of those people who refuses to watch Japanese anime, you're missing out. You're missing out because Japan pulls no punches when it comes to their cinema. They've made some of the most grisly horror films of all time. This, Audition, Ichi the Killer. Don't underestimate foreign horror films, guys. Give them a chance, especially if you're, hardcore horror fanatic like myself. Last, but certainly not least, one of the better horror remakes in recent years, we have the 2018 version of Suspiria. Oh my god, remember the original trailer for Suspiria? Not this one, the original, where you have that, woman singing, that creepy lullaby, like, roses are red, violets are blue, and the iris is a flower that'll be the death of you. That trailer, man. Anyway, Suspiria, it's very, very different from the original movie. In fact, it really doesn't have much in common with the original movie, apart from the fact that it takes place at this ballet academy. It's very, very somber. It's an incredibly somber movie. Tilda Swinton plays multiple characters in this movie, and she is absolutely fantastic. And, if you have the patience for a movie like this, you'll probably enjoy it. There are some truly horrific dance sequences. I mean, holy crap. This is horror art. Horror art. Capital A. Art. One of the better horror remakes. Check it out, guys. This and the 2013 Evil Dead. Those are some of the better recent horror remakes. I know there are others out there, but those are the two big ones that I can think of at the moment. All right. Well, guys, that's all she wrote. Thank you so much for joining me in my discussion of my new horror Blu-ray purchases. If you guys have any suggestions on what I should buy next, please leave your suggestions down below in the comments. Like I said, my horror collection is growing every month, but I'm always looking to buy new titles. Thank you so much again, guys. Again, if you like this, go ahead and subscribe to my spooky YouTube channel. And have a horrific day, boys and ghouls. And yeah, happy hunting. Seriously. And don't worry, I won't do my Rod Serling impersonation again. It's not the best. But later, guys. Take care.